I love taking guys that were me once with no money, trying to figure out life, showing them a game plan, which you've got some exciting stuff coming up that will help, and watching them go be successful. There's nothing more fulfilling other than watching your kids do that than watching guys do that and gals do that in their lives. And I truly love it. I don't know if people love it like I do, because there's not a lot of guys still doing it as long as I've been doing it. When people try to say, oh, I got to go be this type of a recruiter, or I got to go find this type of a person, I'm like, stop, be you. Where's your circle of influence? Tap into that. How you do you.
Yeah.
And then let's go train them how to knock doors and how to pitch. You can train the soft skills, right?
I love that.
So anyway, that's been a big difference in recruiting.
Love that. All right, everybody, welcome to the D2D podcast. This is a cool episode because Brandon Holmes, our guest today, and I go way back. I mean, back to old Vivint days.
Way back.
But he goes way back in this industry. So we've got an industry icon, legend, been in this since 2004. So a lot of before, some of you guys listening to this were probably in middle school, if not elementary school, when they were, when he was out there slinging. And he was started back in the satellite days back at Atlas. And we're going to talk genealogy here for a minute, which is very relevant to the door-to-door space, because I think a lot of people are like, how did Utah become this door-to-door juggernaut? And where did all these companies stem from? And I don't think a lot of people realize, like, Atlas was one of the OG legit door-to-door sales companies that Doug Robinson, Casey Baugh, Toon Brothers. Who else was there?
Nick Hansen. Jeremy Long. Dave Force.
Yeah, Dave Force. So think about that. Yep. That's the owner of Radix. That's the owner of, big names like Legacy Power. Casey Baugh and those guys were the dynasty of Vivint for a long time. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's like that was like the stem of where a lot of these companies have come from. And Brandon has been a big integral part of a lot of that. Was the fifth dude over at Vivint Solar. Like he opened up the entire East Coast, basically, him and Jeremy Long. And who else was with you in that?
So Jeremy was there before I was. Dan Reed.
Oh yeah, Dan Reed.
Dan Reed was in Hawaii. Maybe we can talk to this later too, but it was Hawaii or Jersey, and Jeremy took Jersey. And Jeremy had been on my team that summer before, out in Augusta, Georgia, and we'd like won our little cup thing, whatever. And so Jeremy took the gamble and went to do the solar thing first in Jersey. And he's like, he kept calling me every day. He's like, you got to come just sell one of these, just come out here. So we go out there, and my first day sold 3 in like an hour. And I'm like,
why am I doing this?
This is crazy. Like, this is crazy. Like, this is really legit. So yeah, from
that
there,
was 11 years ago. What year was that?
12. Yeah, it was 2011. This
is like anybody that can say I've been in the solar industry for 11 years. There's very few people who can say that.
Well, what's funny is like, I just spoke to Dan Reed like 2 weeks ago. Talked to Jeremy last week, and they're not doing solar anymore. Jeremy just retired, if you want to call it retired.
He's doing the Axia thing with
Dave.
Dave
Allred. Yep, just met with him, and we're really close. So I don't know of. So you got Adam McClellan, who went north a couple months before I did. You have Adam Cox, and Mike Brand was there the same time. But other than that, like, I don't think there's anyone still doing it as long as we've been doing it. Everyone else is gone.
I mean, you had probably like the California OG solar people that are the mom paws, but like I'm talking like mom paws that were like selling cash deals and like, but I'm talking like pioneer the door-to-door solar world, and Solar City had its thing.
It was still before that.
Yeah, it was before Solar City.
Because Tongi was our CEO for a minute.
And he left and went and started their little thing. Yep. Yeah, you're right.
Yep. In fact, it was Todd was our first CEO. Then Alex was the CEO. We were meeting in a living room. Vivint Solar started in Jeremy Long's living room. I have a picture of it, actually. There's like 5 of us sitting around Jeremy's table, and then Tongi came in and took over, and then Butterfield came in.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So I was there for all of that.
So obviously there's a lot of wisdom in this, and you're speaking at our recruiting summit in October.
Super stoked.
And so anybody interested in that, we're going to San Diego October 20th through the 22nd. Brandon will be there. A couple other people, Shalev, OG. You got some studs speaking there. So if you're into wanting how to grow a team, lead a team, recruit a team, this would be the event for you. Exclusive to 100 people. It's gonna be fire. So I guess the question would be, you've had various roles from regional, divisional to you even were a corporate recruiter at Vivint Solar for a while and moved over kind of more in that role, right?
That's a fun story too.
Yeah,
like evolved. Like I could talk about that. That would be a cool story for people to hear.
Yeah, I'm curious like how you've switched and moved and navigated and opened new departments to where, and before we go into that recruiting story, which would be, I'm curious. It's like you ran your own solar company for a while, and then you had your own EPC company and started doing installs for 12 different installer or dealers. And then just recently, and I'm trying to give you guys a speeded up version because we're trying to condense 18 years into like 30 seconds. So, but recently just got acquired. So that's kind of a big deal.
And if they want to hear more, I could talk more in San Diego at the recruiting event.
Yeah.
Too, right. So
that's what I'm saying. Like we're going to try to pack as much as we can. He spoke last year at DDDCon and he'll be speaking in October. And, like I said, I'm like, there's so many stories and so many things we could run down. So I'm going to try to keep this like pacing, but not many solar companies can say I was a sales rep, I was a regional, I was a VP, I was a recruiter. And then I started my own EPC. And then I actually had an acquisition, and now, like everybody, that's the dream. Like that's the goal in life is like, go build a company, get it acquired, move into different things. So, I guess let's go into the recruiting transition. Talk to me about that one. That was fun.
Let me say one thing first though. Like as you just kind of like ran through my highlight reel in my mind, like I went through like just barely, I just went through like a brief little emotional roller coaster there, right? And I think people do ask me, I get messages all the time on social media like, what was the one thing you learned? Or like, what's the thing what's most important, whatever, right? And I just think like taking a step back and looking at it now in my life where it's like, why do I want to keep going? What would be the reasoning? There's been great money made, money lost. Like, what's the purpose of it, right? Like, why would you want to keep doing this? And it just doesn't, whatever you're doing, just do it with your whole heart. Like no matter what role you're in, like if you just own the role and just decide that I'm going to go all in, and everyone has the same asset, which is time, right? So it's how much effort, how much heart you put into that time frame. And everything that I've ever done, I just decided I'm going to go all in every time for that span. And it seems like that's how I moved up. That's how the bank accounts have moved up. That's how the acquisition happened. And now it's like, why would you stick around? It's like, because I truly, truly love what we do. We've got a lot of buddies doing funds and we're involved in those. We've got some mobile home parks and we've got these wells and these restaurants paying. And like, it's great. Like my kids are going to college. This industry has been so good to us that my kids' college funds have been done for a while. You know what I'm saying? Like that's not the reason. The reason is I love taking guys that were me once with no money, trying to figure out life, showing them a game plan, which you've got some exciting stuff coming up that will help, and watching them go be successful. There's nothing more fulfilling other than watching your kids do that than watching guys do that and gals do that in their lives. And I truly love it. I don't know if people love it like I do because there's not a lot of guys still doing it as long as I've been doing it.
Well, and that's the big shift between sales rep to leader, right? I think a lot of people struggle having that transition. I feel like there's like a transitional curve of like the focus is on me versus now the focus is on how do I help as many people as I can.
Yes.
Whether that's recruit them out of being a waiter or that's, a struggling rep that maybe sucked at other sales job and you're like, dude, I promise if we give you some TLC and the right tools and company or training or whatever, I can help you be an all-star. And then like calls you 6 months later, dude, I just bought my first house. Like, you know what I mean? You've probably had 1,000 of those stories where, like you just said, watching one of your kids is one thing, but watching a rep is another thing. Like they're very similar feelings of like, I know I was a catalyst and because of me, you're on a totally different trajectory. So,
what's cool is like a lot of the guys that we've helped make millions are now the guys that we're doing our funds with.
Yeah.
Right. All the guys that we put into this, we did the divvy deal. Every guy that was in that deal had managed for me at one point, right? And had made the money with us at some point. So now it's coming back full circle, and we're using that to keep just it moving forward, right?
Cool.
So you're always recruiting. It's always no matter what phase you're in, like where'd you go get the money to raise for the fund? Well, that was back in Charleston in 2007 when I helped him knock his first door. Like that was the recruiting moment, right?
Wait, the owner of Divvy was a door-to-door guy?
No. Sorry, we helped raise the money to help get the divvy transaction done.
Oh, okay, cool.
Sorry, but we raised that fund to go help that
Wow.
transaction get there for them to IPO.
Huge.
And some of that money, all the money that we were a part of that we raised came from
Door-to-door
guys that I had been
guys,
knocking
yeah.
with for years, right? So later in life, you want to go do something or run a business or do something away from the doors, where you got to find your contacts. Well, did you help build that guy up, take the time to train him right or not? Like that's where the recruiting starts, you know?
I love that. So talk to me. Okay, so you're running kind of the East Coast, and you're a big player over there.
Mm-hmm.
What was the switch to the recruiter role? Because I think a lot of people struggle between even just like, do I have a full-time recruiter? Do I have a department for recruiting?
Yeah.
Or is it just, you know what I mean? So I'm sure there's some lessons in that as well.
Okay, you want like the
I want the dirt. I want the raw. I want the real authentic, like,
Okay.
not the fluff.
So this is no fluff zone. Shout out B Hall, no fluff. He told me that yesterday. I think that so this is gonna be raw, and the only person that knows the rest of the story is Greg Butterfield, and he'll collaborate this whole thing. So we're on the East Coast and we're doing a good job. Hurricane Sandy hits and it's just miserable. So a lot of guys go over to California, but it's kind of still being ran in different, like it's segmented. So we have a call with we were all directors or VPs at that time. I don't remember what we were at that time, but there was 6 of us. And it was up to either me or Nick Hansen to go to California and help bring it back in harmony, right? Like to get Cali back and pushing, because we were trying to get acquired from Sun Edison at the time.
Oh yeah.
And the reason why the stock was down was they said that our year-round market, which was California, did not have the same impact that we had in our seasonal markets. They called East Coast seasonal. So it's like a big article in the Wall Street Journal. So we have a meeting and Greg's like, hey, so I need either Holmes or Hansen or just going to California and go recruit and go blow this thing up. So you guys pick who it is. So we're all like, me and Nick were on the phone for hours. Our wives are talking. It's like, who's uprooting their life in Jersey, going to go move to LA and change? I happen to be from Santa Barbara area. My dad had a house out there through junior high for me. And so I love it out there and I love the warm weather. So I was like, I'll do it. So we ended up going across country, leaving the teams. And that was right before Ty Williams came into California as well. So the plan was, I came in, I took Thousand Oaks down to San Diego, that region. And then part of this puzzle piece was Ty came in to help do the NorCal, and then Jordan came in and helped it as well. So there was me, Ty, and Jordan were running California, and that's why we went there. And when that happened, Solar City had a string of recruiting because they had Reno Mendenhall that got pulled over,
Frampton.
Which is why I went into SoCal. I really stepped into where Reno left. That happened while I was driving across country.
You're just like, dude.
And Reno's my second cousin, and I love Reno, and I'm going to bring that up because Reno always jokes about being we're cousins. So, and Reno was one of the first guys that I ever worked with at Atlas back in the day.
OG. Another OG.
So yeah, no, my grandma's a Mendenhall, so we talk about that. So I'm calling Reno. I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Like it's this West Side Story kind of conversation, right? And Reno's like, I'm out. And I'm like, okay, that conversation will stay between me and Reno. But so we start bleeding, and we're losing a lot of momentum to Solar City because they got a couple of our top dudes. So we have another meeting, and they sit down with this solution, and the solution is, we want to take the guy who's the most disruptive recruiter and go just have him just recruit for the regions, the different regions across the country. And I didn't know, but they had voted me to be that guy. That was back when Facebook just kind of was like popping. And I was pretty vocal on Facebook when it was started. I just like to get dirty and recruit and go at it. So they asked me to do that, which I didn't want to do it per se, because I didn't want to get out of the field. I love being like a VP, a regional, and a manager in the field. That's my favorite. I've done everything. That is by far my favorite role, no questions asked. Like, I love that job. You can make the most money there. People think you're making money is the upper.
You're like corporate at this point. Dude, it's so funny.
That's right. I was making, just, you want the nitty gritty, I made $800,000 that year. That's the most I'd made at that point. And they wanted me to go take, a $300,000 salary job, W-2'd, in corporate to go recruit for everybody else. And I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. Like, you want me to go give you all of my teams?
And you just moved to Cali.
Yeah. So this was over like a 2-year span.
Okay.
When the bleed out was a 2-year bleed out. Okay. And it felt bigger than it really was. Like, you go back and look at the numbers, and it wasn't that bad. It was just the emotion of what was happening, right?
You're losing good friends. And
that's right.
Yeah, you're like, why is people like that we've been with for 5 years, 10 years leaving? Like,
that's right. Now looking back to it, it makes sense. It's all love. But in the moment, it was the sky's falling. So it was falling enough, and no one was doing anything other than our region was growing drastically. And so Greg pulled me in and said, look, I'll mentor you. You can report with me, like, come work side by side with me, and I'll tutor you to be a CEO. You can move back to Utah, and I'll meet with you all the time. And that to me was worth
it.
$500,000, $500,000 a year, $500,000 to go learn from Greg and watch him run this company going through an IPO.
Which probably helped you tremendously as I did the same thing. Did you? Like, my story is very similar. Like, I was getting these killer offers before I was going into Solstice, and I just knew Kelly Walker had taken Pinnacle public or sold it for $250 million, and he has a really different CEO type brain. Mm-hmm. And I took less of a pay, more of a role so that I could be in proximity.
Yep.
And the lessons I learned in 2 years being a VP of solar, in my opinion, has helped structure a ton for the last 5 years running a business. So it's interesting, the intangible education value that you say that. And I think that's a principle that people need to remember as they listen to this podcast. But keep going.
And that's why I'm a big proponent of mentoring. And people are like, have you ever paid for mentoring? Yeah, more than you've ever imagined, like, possible, right? Like, I literally paid $500,000 for 3 years to sit at Greg's feet and watch him do it, right? Like, and I wouldn't change a thing. It was such a valuable lesson to watch, what to do, what not to do. And because of that, I'll always love Greg Butterfield. I'll always be grateful to Greg, and I appreciate what he did for me. So, but we were at the height of that thing. So what I did was I built it like we built all of our sales teams. I had a recruiter in every region, so it was assigned to the VP. So like I would go to, like, let's just use Adam McClellan in Massachusetts for an example. I went to Adam and I said, okay, man, who do you want to work with out here? Who's your top guy that recruits the most in your area? He gave me a guy named Tony. So I went to Tony and said, hey, this is what we're doing. Here's how the pay works. And I had to build the pay scale. I had to get the managers to agree to give up some of their override, like to put this together. But I had him working with the regional, with the VP. And then they would report back to me, and we would set up systems from an Indeed to all the different, postings, all the different type of corporate recruiting, to working with every new rep. So 3 different leg prong approach to recruiting, right? Very methodical.
Yeah, it's sourcing, onboarding, and then kind of retaining the first 30 days. Those are all very different. Like, when you're a corporate recruiter, like, that's the thing I think a lot of people don't understand. It's like, you're the one that has a relationship, and all of a sudden you just pass this name and phone number to manager. It's like, good luck. Like,
so listen to these stats. So we recruited per quarter. It was like 520 something. I think 528 heads we recruited per quarter. But the stat that was the most interesting was it was 380 something. No, I know it's 380 something. Were getting to their first 3 permits.
Wow, that's big.
It was huge, but we were still losing almost half of our people.
But that's still, like, honestly, you look at I've studied these numbers because I work with so many different companies. Like, statistically, that's a very half I would be excited about, even though you're trying to probably push that needle, but I would be happy with that number.
For sure. No, and we were, right? Like, but the disconnect was coming with what I'm trying to highlight, what you were just pointing out, right? Was the reason for that massive disconnect. And if you're listening to this and you want to try to increase your recruiting, it's when we saw those, what we did do was I put another piece and we hired another person that was going to help go from just basically the onboarder, right? And it's not going to be someone it's not a desk job. It's not a guy sitting behind a computer. It's someone that can help walk them through boot camp, someone that can help walk them through their knocking schedule, and someone that can help get them a role and responsibility in the office. If you don't have those three things, they're not lasting for sure till their first 3 permits. And then make sure their pay is tied to that rep's first 3 permits. So as soon as I moved the carrot to the pay, then our numbers shot up. And it was crazy. Because
they had skin in the game in the sense of, this is my job.
That's right.
And if I can't do my job, I'm not making money. So they wanted to make a lot of money. So it'd almost be like a manager that wants more of a corporate feel, but has experience in selling, has experience in training. That would be a good person for that role.
So guess when we started having 2 managers in solar offices?
There you go. So it's almost like a co-manager. It's like, we call it an office manager and the sales rabbit manager. Like the guy that's like pace setting, leading from the front, follow me.
But remember, that's not how it was. When we started solar, it was 1 manager. And we would have a 70-30 split to have another guy that you could help, right? He was not another manager. That's when we made it go 50-50. Like we made it go 50-50 for that reason.
And a lot of people would combat, right? Like maybe the admin guy's like, well, without me, none of these guys would be trained and onboarded. And then the sales, like the more sales focused guy that's hype, he's like, well, without me, like we wouldn't be selling this many. And, and I think that people need to understand when recruiting, like there is such a value in the person that can find, onboard, train, retain new blood, because that new blood is such a lifeblood of your business. Like, it's like you said, you were like, man, we were bleeding. We were going through a downturn in California, and it was like, we're losing guys. And it's like a good company goes, and we know how to replace and build new ones. Like, and there's an abundance of people out there that want to do this industry. Like the guy that doesn't know how to recruit, onboard, train, retain is going, oh shoot, what do I do without my brother and my cousin that run half my company? And they just left. So I'm shit out of luck. Like that's when companies struggle. And I'm assuming, I mean, to fast forward, like, a little bit, you've helped, as an EPC company, you helped other business owners run their dealerships. And we were talking downstairs, it was like, I ended up being a VP of sales half the time for their companies, because most of these EPCs, or most of these dealers, really don't have much business being an actual dealer. And so talk me through kind of the basic struggles, pain points you would see amongst these new startup solar companies as you coach them and manage them.
So let me finish the
finish that story
piece, only because it will answer this one, right? Cool. So I got tired of, so Greg got fired from Vivint Solar when the acquisition didn't happen. And I was done with giving guys all these heads and only making 300 grand, where if I could have had half of the people we were recruiting in my region, I would have been making a couple $1 million a year on the pay scale at the time, right? So my why was gone, and I'm like, okay, so I'm gonna get back. So where can I go? And that was right when they were doing the loan for the very first time, and we were opening up Utah, Texas, Albuquerque, New Mexico. Arizona was kind of there, but it was kind of not really there, and Colorado. And so I'm like,
that's our hometown.
I'll go there. I'll go do it. We own Texas on the alarm side. Like we have so many accounts and all these, like, let me go, I'll do it. So I made a new division at Vivint Solar called Southwest. And I took all those states that no one wanted or never sold solar in before. And I was the first guy that went in there, worked with the cities, worked with the utilities. And that's where I learned the value of having that second manager guy, right? Where doing all the, I don't want to call it ops stuff because it's sales ops stuff. And literally working with the cities to get rough inspections and the stamps on the plans and all that kind of stuff that people don't know go into being an EPC very well. And I did that for those 8 states for 3 years. And we made back on the pay scale, so the money went back up really quick. So we liked that. And so then back to your question. So when we left Vivint Solar, when I left Vivint Solar, I wanted to stay in those states because they didn't want to be there anymore. And I had known a lot about those states, being the guy that kind of got them going. And so having that piece on like autopilot, being able to have people that were, and again, I'm nothing without my team. I've got 2 partners that I do everything with. We split 50-50. And we've got cast members that are like, it's not just me, right? Like it is a whole team of people that run this stuff. And without them, it doesn't exist. And so I wouldn't be too stingy about cutting up percentages. Like when you don't care about that, and I know people would be like, well, make sure I've never done that. And I've always made more money than the guy that's always trying to cut up that penny, right? And so anyway, that's a plug for that kind of concept. But so then as these EPCs started coming to, or these dealers started to come to our EPC, we saw so much inefficiency as we were super good getting these things installed with the cities, but they weren't providing volume. And it was, I don't know of one dealer that I've seen that should actually be a full dealer. And that's maybe harsh, and that may be, but the reasoning they do it makes sense. They want to have their own, they want to own it. They've been burned before, like they want to be able to control their destiny, and I appreciate that. So it's good. But from an actual business know-how, knowing what goes into it, where to file your taxes, where to create your entities, where to do, like how to get your website set up, how to get, what attorneys you should use, what to involve attorneys in and what not to involve them in, like all that stuff, none of them knew. So we ended up making boot camps for these dealers on how to be a business, and spent most of our time doing that than anything else as an EPC, which was really fascinating.
Yeah. No, on Monday and Tuesday, I have a business boot camp. And most of the people that come are these new startup solar company. You know, like I've had, like Lumia was their last boot camp. Like we've had big ones with 2,000 sales reps, but you know, I would say the majority are under 50 or 100 sales reps, and they're still just like, man, I thought I was going to make so much more money by being a dealer.
Sure.
But what they end up spending all their time in is trying to figure out their lawyer, figure out their freaking website, figure out their, you know, taxes, figure out that. And it's like they underestimate the value of a really good company streamlining a lot of that process for them. Right. And most EPC companies are going to respond to you and be like, no, you're coming to us just to do your installs, not to run your business.
Correct.
Like, I'm not doing your commission structures and your pay scales and your,
which we did.
Yeah, which is unique. But now you just sold that because you said, so why the acquisition? Why get it into, so Legacy bought you, which is, I'm assuming public knowledge now, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay, I was like, I didn't say that. Like, I was like,
It wasn't when I wrote the bio, I was like, do I put this in?
Yeah,
okay.
By the time this comes out, it's public knowledge. And I guess the question would be, why go join forces with Doug again? I mean, that's so crazy. Full circle, right?
Oh, yeah.
Atlas, 2014, 15, or 2004, 5, you know, and then now working in arms with Doug over at Legacy, which is a juggernaut to be messed with right now.
Yeah.
Why the merge?
So back to this genealogy concept.
Yeah.
So when we left Vivint Solar, the idea was, when we left Vivint Solar, the idea was, we called the company United Energy, and we wanted to say, look, I don't care what jersey color you wear. We want to unite all the dealer world and provide a solution, whether it's tech, whether it's a platform, whether it's an installer that you can use and kind of go be so we white labeled a lot of our installs for these dealers. And that was the idea. But we needed to go get contracts with all the different EPCs at the time, right? And that didn't exist at that point. People are like, that's how it always been. No, it was not. That was not a thing. You went to Legacy to get Sunrun, right? You went to Solstice if you wanted Solstice. You went to, I can't even remember at that time, but you had exclusive contracts. Titan had an exclusive contract you had to sign. Empire was an exclusive contract, right? So I'm like, how do I break this exclusive contract? So I went to Doug and I said, Doug, I have an idea. How about me and you bring our sales volume together? Because we're 1 and 2 with the Titan and the Empire at this time. And these were the bigger ones at the moment. And I said, how about you be our solution for Sunrun? And I'll be the solution for Titan Empire. Let's come together, use our volume, and kind of demand they allow us to have multiple EPCs, or else we'll go with the other one. And also, the banks had an exclusive. You had to pick to be with Mosaic, or you had to pick to be with, and it may have been that stint, but people are like, that's not how it was. Yes, it was. No one remembers that, but it definitely was like that. So then we pulled our volume, Titan agreed, which was huge. And then that made Empire agree, which was huge. And then we just went and put on about 8 different EPCs in the country with Doug. So we were still united, but we started their
franchise program.
We named it franchise.
Okay.
Yep. So that was a B. Holmes, Doug Robinson
That's
collaboration.
awesome. I didn't realize that you were part of that whole development, because he was kind of the anti-franchise model for a long time.
Yes, he was.
And to see him launch that, I was like, and what's funny is it's like you look at the percentage of volume that comes from their franchise versus the percentage of volume that comes from the direct.
Yep.
It's completely like way more direct, right? But like
it's about 50-50 right now.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Because I know for a long time it was like, dude, we got like 500 dealers that do nothing, like a bunch of one-man bands that just suck.
There's still those.
Yeah.
But they've got a couple.
They picked up some solid ones. Okay.
We brought our 12 there too. So.
Oh yeah.
But that was a Doug Braden collaboration at first, and so it worked really well. And then at that point we said, hey, look, we're dealing with Empire. This thing is what's happening. Titan and these guys, and so we want to go do our own EPC. Doug, let's do it. And Doug was like, I just want to be a sales. This is our hedgehog. Let's stay doing this. So we disagreed on where we wanted to take it. And I said, if you ever want to do installs again, let's collaborate. Because I really do love Doug. I appreciate Doug. We've had our ups and downs too. If anyone knows me and Doug's history, we've cost each other a lot of money in recruiting battles.
Yeah.
A lot.
Which is so interesting to think full circle. That's what I was saying. Like, you've recruited against Doug. You've recruited against Solar City. Like, you just think of like, and it goes back to just don't ever burn a bridge.
That's right.
Bad.
That's right. Burn it for the moment.
Yeah.
And then put it out real quick.
Yeah.
And then find a way to make up for it if you're gonna do it. And then there's a difference between like banter and actually like going through with something bad, right?
Yeah.
So bantering's fun. It's a sport. Go win the guys straight up, right? Go create a better program and win them from that. But even then, it is what it is. So I'm grateful that we never burned our bridge. We always kept it good. We had to discuss a lot of sensitive subjects, but it's been great. So when they started their EPC, you talked about what caused that. So they'd come to us to do some of their installs in southern Utah. So Legacy was starting to do their own installs. They asked us to help them in southern Utah. I feel like in my gut, and I have data to support this, it was in December of this last year, and I had internal indicators in our EPC when costs would go up to like notify me of why and what was going up. We had 8% of our profit margin was getting cut into, and nothing was like
no reason.
Flagged.
Yeah.
No reason. So I'm like, that's a lot of profit margin. That's a lot of cost. And we have more volume than we've ever had. Like,
shouldn't it be more efficient?
Last year we were cutting $200,000 distribution checks to all the partners. We were like, it was like, you know what I'm saying? Like things were how and when and why and what's going on. So I dive in, and every piece of equipment, from your nuts, your bolts, like everything was going up 1/16 of a penny, 1/23 of half of a penny. Like everything was slightly raising, and everything was going up. And then a lot of the shipping stuff, the ports, the panels, everything was getting stuck in Long Beach. We have 2 containers still in Long Beach that are coming from China. So this uncertainty from the government was a big issue that most dealers don't believe exists. But if you're a larger EPC and you're shipping panels across coming from China, it's a thing, and it's not a good thing. And I got very concerned as I went and I talked to some of these bigger companies, and we looked at what they were doing and their concerns, and completely validated. And I, with my partners, Austin Summers and Morgan Torgerson, big shout out to those dudes. Again, those are my ride or die dudes, and I love those guys. It was, do we go into this storm? It's gonna get bumpy. And this was before they extended the tax credits, right? Still, it's still gonna be bumpy. The cost of everything is still up, okay? So it was, do we go find a partner that can help us purchase equipment where we go do this volume idea again, like we did the first time with the franchise concept. But now do we go do it as an EPC, and do we go get really dangerous? Do we go create something where we can go win? Do we create something that we can go like win, or do we continue and help these 12 companies be better sales companies? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And as we talked to, we had 5 different companies that were looking at purchasing us at the time. And when we met with Doug and Legacy, we started to look at where we could purchase with them, what warehouses of ours they could have, what fleets we would use. And it was such like a fit perfectly. Like they were trying to get into Utah looking for warehouse space, and we had enough space to house them and us. We have a warehouse in Houston that they have, that ours was a little bit like, just everything was just like
that makes sense.
Like almost such a no-brainer where I'm like, I'm just waiting for something to not work.
Yeah.
We're still waiting. So it just like merged so easily on the operation side that I'm like, okay, the sales side's going to be messy. We've got these 12 partners. We've got our internal teams. And as we had the sales teams come join, the rankings just came out inside of Legacy. Our team was like number 3 overall after our first month there. So, and our guys were number 1 and number 3 in the whole company.
That's awesome.
Shout out to my little bro, Dax Holmes. He was number 3. So I'm proud to watch my little bro like taking on the name and carrying on the legacy. But we can hang and we're doing good, right? So it was fun to watch that happen. And I do, from my perspective, think that from a sales company, with the tech that Legacy uses with their own, with Canvas, with the different platform they have, they've made it easier on us. As I thought we were selling and our process was easy, it's easier where we're at currently, and we saw that. And to be a part of that now, as we've combined with those, I think we're either 5th or 7th largest installer right now in the nation. The report came out, and don't quote me on that one. Actually, I could find out, but 5 or 7 with both of us now. So now we're a contender, and we're only installing 23% of our sales volume. So as we go build that ops team, which is what I'm excited to help go do right now, is build that ops team and catch up with the sales teams, we're going to be big. It's going to be fun.
That's exciting.
That's what's exciting.
So I think there's something to be said there around kind of dropping the ego. I think every young entrepreneur has this idea of like united. It's like, right. I have this brand, I have my own company, I'm like, you know, and partnership. You said I'm super grateful for Austin and Morgan, and I'm super grateful for this experience of how you've tried to collaborate, and then you're like, oh, that one didn't work, this one went through, this one worked for a while, and just finding the bigger picture and being part of something. I think what's cool is you've had this dynamic of you're part of the beginning initiation of Vivint Solar, which then was bought by Sunrun.
Yep. And
you were also part of kind of the beginning of like a lot of the Vivint growth, and you're also part of the beginning of your own company, and now coming back full circle, like seeing the different dynamics of a startup to where you're on your own island and being part of the big dogs. What advice would you give somebody that's kind of teetering? Like, do I leave my company and start another one? Do I go to a small startup that's offering me a VP position because then there's more opportunity for growth? Do I join forces? Like, what advice would you give that guy?
Man, that's tough. Because what I have to say, what I've told people, they don't want to hear, and they stop listening to me. So I've kind of catered my response to depend on who I'm talking to.
Yeah.
And you may be like, well, that sounds kind of fickle, but there's truth in a lot of different avenues for different people, right?
Yeah, everybody has a different goal, desire, longevity, purpose.
So correct. So here's what I'd say to that is find out what gives you the most energy. And just because you're the best at something doesn't mean you should do it. So let me give you the example. At United, we had a CEO, we had a president, we had CSO, we had CMO, we had CFO, and I was the CEO because from a vision perspective, growth perspective, relationships with bankers, legal, like that's what I do. I like it, I'm good at it, and I was probably most qualified for it, right? when it came to the finances, we learned that I was the best at that. Like, it would just always come back to my desk anyway. And so I ended up taking it over and becoming the CFO. But I didn't like it. I hated it. In fact, it drove me crazy. I needed to get back to vision, back to building, back to recruiting, back to the stuff that gave me the energy. But you become so overwhelmed in the minutia of a role like being the CFO. And even we had people come in and like that we interviewed for it. No one was better than me at it. Like, I'm actually really good with numbers, like crazy good. I can do all stuff in my head. Like, I like numbers, but that doesn't mean I should do it.
Yeah.
And we had no one else that would or could. And I should have outsourced it faster, right? But it got built around my brain, and then it just had to be around my brain.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I wish that I could have outsourced that better and faster. So the message is, just because you're the best at something doesn't mean you should do it. You should find the thing that gives you the most energy and go do that. Here's another one. I got to go play basketball at Rick's because I was the best at basketball, but I loved football. Yeah. And when I went up there to play ball, I knew the football coach, Coach Hahn, and I went and did some 7-on-7 with the team. And I could have played football, but I chose to do basketball because I was best and take the scholarship. And looking back, I wish I would have played football instead. And that's kind of that idea. Like, I went with what I was the best at because people wanted me to do that. And even if I made less money, or even if I got less playing time, or even if whatever, at this stage of my life, 40 years old now, looking back at that career, finding what makes you the happiest, makes you want to get up, makes you want to go into the office. And right now, being able to look at a Doug Robinson and say, you are as good or better at being a CEO than I am and I was, I'll gladly let you be the guy. And that was me and Doug's first meeting was, I don't got to be the guy.
Yeah.
And Doug said, I don't got to be the guy. And I said, well, let you be the guy because I like doing this better.
Yeah.
Right? And that was when we knew I think it was going to be magical. So let me go be the VP of the sales because this stuff gives me energy and I love this and I want to go do this. And he said, well, I love doing this. And it was like, perfect. Like, then let's go run. And we're running hella fast right now because of doing what we love.
Yeah. And I think there's something to be said there. And maybe you test the waters. It's
Sure.
kind of like college. It's like, go take a yoga class and go take a finance class and go take this class so that you kind of at least get to test the waters. And it's okay going backwards. People think that like, oh, I started a company, I forever now have to be CEO.
Correct.
And they get stuck in this mindset of like, because it's this, it has to always be this. Instead of like, great, you tried that on and it wasn't a good fit for you. Oh, you tried that on and holy crap, you thrived. Like It was holding you back. I look at like, I went to, a couple of these companies, like Jordan Melhoff, right?
Yeah.
Like he was a great manager, great rep, but never like the outstanding. Or Judd Stanger. It's like, dude, I recruited that guy out of freaking Utah State, right? Like, and I'm like, these guys are cool and they're managers. They're okay. I ran circles around them. Right. They go start companies and just sold them for like 50, 60, 100 million or whatever, just barely. And I'm like, are you effing kidding me? Like they played CEO roles, but they were like subpar at like in my world, right? I'm like, what? Those guys? Like, and
so Danny Pesci, right?
Yeah.
So I recruited Eli Robertson, was one of my high school buddies. He recruits Danny. And as a rep, I remember Eli coming to me and I'm like, fire the guy. Fire Danny Pesci. Like 8 times I've told him to fire Danny Pesci. And now as Pesci's on stage, and whether you love him or hate him, he's done a great job and he's got people that like to listen and he's done a really great job with his thing. And it's like, as a rep, I wanted to fire him, but now as him doing his thing, like I really enjoy listening to him.
Yeah, he found his little like thing.
Right.
And I think that, and he had to test that. He had to break the mold. And sometimes people want to put you in a box of like, you should be doing this. Like you should be playing football instead of basketball or whatever, right? And I think that's like, I'm writing a book on this right now. It's called The Self-Experience. And so this is like such a fun, I love just even like these research pieces. So like I have a guy coming to do a podcast right now on facial readings.
Oh,
and
wow.
He'll be here in a minute, but it's like, he's like, cool, I can tell your geniuses and your strengths and your likes and your dislikes simply by your eyebrow length and your lip size and your ear location. You'll meet him. He's freaking sick.
That's exciting.
But like, it's just, you're built that way. And it's
Right.
it's like, okay, cool. Like fit yourself into a role and a team that is going to give you strength. And I think, when it comes to recruiting, I think a lot of people are like, I'm not a great recruiter. I'm a good recruiter. It's like, okay, figure out your strengths in recruiting. What type of recruiting are you good at? I think some people are great at going to a restaurant or a gym and being just the social butterfly and talking to random strangers. Other people, that would give them the most anxiety in the planet.
Yep.
But they could sit behind Indeed ads and they could filter through for days candidate sourcing, where if you made me sit and filter candidates on an Indeed profile, I'd be like, this is the most boring crap in the world. Like
100%. And this is where I think, like, with where I become a great recruiter, is people have limiting beliefs on who needs to do this job, right? So as soon as you remove the lid of who do you think a good candidate is, and I learned this when I was doing this for Vivint Solar, when we brought in the corporate recruiters, right?
Yeah.
And they were like, well, we got to go find this and this and this criteria. I said, stop. Who are you? Let's identify who you are. Now you go get people like you, because I can turn you into a door knocker, right?
Yeah.
You go do you do you, and I'll turn those people in. We can train door knocking. That's a skill. You can learn that. But when people try to say, oh, I got to go be this type of a recruiter, or I got to go find this type of a person, I'm like, stop. Be you. Where's your circle of influence? Tap into that. How you do you.
Yeah.
And then let's go train them how to knock doors and how to pitch. You can train the soft skills, right?
I love that.
So anyway, that's been a big difference in recruiting.
Love that. Well, I would go for days, but we gotta wrap up because Homeboy will be here in a minute. Last question, and those listening guys, like, this is designed just to give you a little, get you hot and bothered, give you a boner, but not get you off. No, come to the recruiting summit, October 20th and 22nd through 22nd. But I would say, if you could give like one advice to maybe that struggling manager that's like got 1 or 2, 3 reps, and he's like, I want to build a bigger team. I want to get 10 guys, to go from 1 to 3 to 10 or 15 guys, what would be the fastest way he could do that in his, like, what would you give him as like the best tip you could give that guy?
And that's a great question. And I think it's the same advice when I've done some mentoring for these CEOs that are making 1 to 3 million and they want to go to 10 million, or the 10 to 12 million, they want to go to 50 million. As long as you've got someone that has done it before. So where I've ran, 60 to $100 million companies, if I want to go bigger than that, I'll need to go get the mentoring to do that. So my first thing would be go find somebody who's done what you want to do, right? And if they haven't, don't listen to that person.
Yeah.
That's the biggest. They're either listening. If you're stuck at 1 to 3 guys and you're a manager, you're listening to the wrong people, and you have the wrong people that are helping you. So shift where you're getting your information or your knowledge or your training from first. So go get the right mentor, I would call it. And then second is do you. Just be who you are.
Do you.
Do you. And don't try to go recruit the Sam Taggarts of the world. Go recruit the guy. I'll go recruit the guys like B. Holmes. Like, I want to go get those people and then partner with the Sam Taggart, and let's get a team. And so the number 3 is don't be afraid to partner with someone who's not you, right? Yeah. That's how I've built big organizations, is I've got partners that aren't me, and I know that. And then the last thing would be is just get it into systems. Make systems and streamline the other stuff that you're not good at or that people aren't good at, and then let it go. Yeah. And there's one more. Then be patient.
Be patient. Yeah. I think a lot of people, it was funny. I was looking at the numbers helping this guy grow his team. I coach a CEO out of Chicago. He's running a roofing company. And, I was like, okay, so it's hire 10, keep 3, then keep 1. Yep. Then hire 10 again, keep 3, and then keep 1 again.
So my number's 831.
831. Yeah. Like, I was just like, and that's the cycle you're going to go through. And I was like, some of those you want to fire, some of them will fire themselves. But I'm like, at the end of the day, you're growing 1 rep at a time that's actually a stud that's going to be with you. And it's just like, and you had to get 30 guys to get there. Like, and I think that people don't realize, like, you've recruited thousands of people, and you've trained and worked with and poached and developed and, all these things to get you your core people. And some of those core people are at different companies now. Sure. Some of those people, have come and gone and started their own thing. Like, And you're at where you're at because you just kept hitting the metronome and doing the thing over and over and over again.
Yep.
And I think a lot of people are like, oh, I just recruited these 3 guys and now I'm set. I'm good. I'm like, no, you can't stop recruiting. Don't assume that they're always going to be there for you forever.
Yep.
And know that it's something that there's an abundance out there if you just followed what you just said, those principles. So I love that. And even on the partner one, like Nick Hansen was my Greg Butterfield. So like I was mentored by Nick for 2 years and I had the opportunity. I was a better recruiter, better sales rep, but I was like, he was a much better manager. He was that opposite side of me that was like leader, held the fort. I'm just like off the wall all the time, you know? And so I took that, oh, we make a good team approach. Like you help what I don't have, etc. Right? So I would agree 100% to that. So you're gonna say something, sorry? Yeah,
no, I was gonna just dovetail on that concept is, and don't feel like you're losing. I think some guys will get in their brains when they lose a guy, or if you're the 1 to 3 up to 10 rep stage and a guy loses, you're like the sky's falling. One of the guys that I'm mentoring right now, some of his employees are leaving, and he is like he feels like the world is ending, right? Like button down the hatches. We got to change processes, change systems. This like throws out principles because you're trying to cater to these couple of individuals that you feel your program's built upon, right? It's not built upon any individual if you've done it right. Build it on, like I said, systems and principles. And so then when those guys come and go, that's fine. Even if it was like me and Doug during the franchise era, I didn't like, oh, me and Doug are done, right? No, it's like, hey man, you want to go here, I want to go here. That's great. I'm sure at some point it'll come back, and now we're coming back. I'm sure at some point me and Greg will find something to do together again. I'm sure at some point me and Casey will go invest in some mobile home park together, which we have. I'm sure at some point me and J-Lo will go do another real estate deal,
and
which
you've
we just
left
did.
All of those people,
right?
Like that you've had to have that conversation on them out, and they're like, ouch,
sure,
you're taking what? And now full circles.
Exactly.
So remember that. So appreciate you being on the show, man. This has been phenomenal, and I love this relationship. You know, like I said, it's just been a long time. I'm like, man, we got to get you on the freaking show. So, but anyway, guys, if you got some value out of this, go subscribe to the podcast, but also go hit up Brandon Holmes. What's your Instagram?
bholmes.life.
And check out his podcast, Doors to Success.
Right.
He's got his own door-to-door podcast. He's put out content supporting our industry, which I love, guys that are out there making content, supporting, giving value, and giving back to, you know, help pass along all the lessons that you've learned. So guys, Doors to Success podcast, B Holmes, and guys, go leave a comment on this. Like, go to the reviews and say, Brandon was my favorite episode or whatever. I got this value out of it. Go leave a comment, some love for him in the reviews section so that we can kind of hear some feedback. So appreciate you being on the show, man. This is great.
Last plug, man. I just think that it's been fun for me. I remember when we sat down, because again, I don't know if you knew that, but me, Nick, and Casey and Jeff were kind of those guys. So we'd have that meeting, and I remember Nick coming in and he's like, hey, we recruit this guy named Sam Taggart, super excited. He did this and this or whatever. I remember Nick being hyped about you, and I remember doing a training that you were there, and I met you in that side gym.
The little room, the theater room or whatever. And
we got the red grit hats. I don't know if you remember that meeting, but that's the first time I met you. And so from that moment until now, man, I just wanted to tell you how impressed I am with you, what an awesome individual you've been. Even with everything that life throws at all of us, like just to watch people navigate using their principles. Just want to tell you, man, how much I love and appreciate what you've done for our industry, for me and my family. And I just think you're a solid dude, man. Appreciate you.
Means a lot. Thanks, man. Okay. Love you guys. Peace.
Do we hug?
Do we hug? Yeah.